Okay, Jason, I gotta ask you, man. The BMF titles on the line in the main event between Jorge Masvidal and Nate Diaz. So the question remains, who you got?
This is a fascinating fight because they both have clear skill sets that are advantageous to them, but they're also sort of familiar. They're both very good boxers. I mean, Jorge can kick though. That's one difference that they have. Um, Nate's a very good grappler who probably doesn't use it enough. Jorge's a guy who actually has pretty good grappling, but only needs to use it when he has to in terms of defensive. And it's weird because you would think in a lot of like Masvidal's fights, like, oh, he's coming up from lightweight. He's a lightweight before. He's got maybe a speed advantage. Maybe he showed against Till, but I mean, Nate's probably really an optimal lightweight too. He should probably be there, and this fight is happening at 170, so it's tough. Like, damn, like I can see it being like the Pettis fight for Diaz and him using his grappling, trying to wear down Jorge, maybe slow up those hands a little bit, and then putting out that output as is always something that's so special, so hard to deal with. The length, the size, the output. Even though he's not necessarily a bulky guy, he still seems to be a bigger man in a lot of his fights in a weird way. But God, I don't know. I just feel like Masvidal on a technical level is better. But I've so many times felt the same way in Diaz fights, and he still wins the fight. McGregor, he was technically not better than. Donald Cerrone, he was technically not better than. Anthony Pettis, he was technically not better than. And then he wins all these fights. I'll
You
go.
leaning
Oh,
toward Diaz?
nah, I'll go Masvidal. I'll go with technique, but God, I have no confidence whatsoever in this pick at all.
You know what? I'm of a similar level of confusion here because this is I really think Jorge Masvidal should win this fight.
hmm
From a skill set standpoint, he has all the tools to beat Nate. And Nate, you know what you're going to get with him. You know
hmm
exactly what you're going to get with Nate Diaz, and
Yep.
there are literally no surprises. I don't think we've seen a new wrinkle in his game, maybe in a very long time. I mean, I guess you could look at some of the wrestling in the Pettis fight,
Yeah.
but he's the type of guy to um, I don't know. He just finds himself in these strange positions, and he kind of does what he's gonna do. Like he
hmm
finds a way to do everything in the most Nate Diaz way possible.
Yeah.
Now, where my confusion lies though is not only where Nate wins these fights where he shouldn't be winning, where on paper he is not the better guy and somehow he comes out ahead. It's not so much that for me. The X factor to me is the fact that this is the BMF title, that there is this artificial belt that's attached to this whole thing, and not that it's. I think if this were for the undisputed welterweight or lightweight title, I don't think you'd see any change in the action. I think these guys would just fight the way they fight. But when you have a belt that is designed, this whole promotion and marketing, everything designed off of these two saying about each other, yeah, this is a bad motherfucker. And this guy stands and bangs, and this guy, and I like the way he fights. It's like this extra pressure to fight like that. It's this
Mm.
extra pressure to take away the things that would make them have a much more interesting style blend, if you ask me. And then it's kind of like who wins a gunfight. Masvidal definitely has more power. He has more power, but I think his power is something that we're talking about more lately after the Darren Till fight,
Mm.
where he one shot KO'd somebody, something that he wasn't known for before. Nate is a guy who is in a lot of gunfights, but he is not the guy who's going to knock you on a power. It's all about accumulation.
Yep.
I'm gonna have to go with Nate Diaz in this because of that. Because I think this whole BMF thing might influence the action to where they just stand and bang, to where they want to put on this show for the fans. And I say in that gunfight, Nate with the longer reach, with more height, with more volume on his game, I think he has the ways to wear Masvidal down. And I think if he wears Masvidal down to where he then starts trying to go to his grappling. I think that's like, granted, Masvidal did hang in there with Damian Maya for 3 rounds,
Yeah.
and
Five
at
rounds,
least
right?
No, that was a 3 rounder. That was a
Oh, okay.
a main card fight
Oh.
on UFC 217, if I'm not mistaken, or that was Thompson. Whatever. You know what I'm trying to say here.
Mm.
Um, I do think that Masvidal will find himself in trouble if he gets to the point where he goes for that desperation grappling, where he gets worn out and then he dives in
Mm.
for a leg, like kind of like what happened to McGregor.
Yeah.
I think that's a strong possibility here. But what do I know? Like this is such an interesting matchup because of who these two gentlemen are. But now when you put the spectacle around it, I don't know how that alters the action or if it does at all. But if it does, I say Nate Diaz wins this fight, and it'll probably be a pretty brutal brawl. I think maybe into the fourth round or so, where his superior cardio really takes over, where he really kind of gets in his rhythm. And when he gets in that Nate Diaz bag, and he's
Yeah.
giving you the finger and he's slapping and then it's kind of like his opponent is just left like a deer in headlights. That's how I see this fight playing out, but it's anyone's guess. Nate Diaz gets the BMF title,
I'm
if
just
you ask me.
fascinated because it like everything you're saying about the Nate stuff is really true. But has he ever encountered a more like him person than Jorge Masvidal? Like, can you get more ingrained toughness than Jorge Masvidal?
I
You
mean,
know?
I'd say maybe Donald Cerrone.
But it's like, did Donald Cerrone grow up that street life like Nate Diaz and Jorge Masvidal? It's a difference. I'm not saying he's not a tough guy. He's a tough guy, but there's a street life difference that like inner city can build in a person that's just so
Eh,
different than a lot of places.
I mean that is true. There's a certain level of toughness that breeds. It's a different sort of toughness that
Mm.
breeds, as opposed to like your Matt Hughes style outdoorsman or something like that.
Yeah, yeah,
There's something different about that. I mean, maybe the closest we could think, McGregor.
yeah,
Or Pettis, man. Anthony Pettis is
yeah,
is
yeah.
is no slouch out there in the streets if you know his movements very well. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not quite sure that is going to play much of a factor. Aside from the fact that Nate will have street to match street.
Yeah.
But if we take that out of the way, man, I just BMF thing is just strange to me. It's just really strange to me,
So many levels.
and I think that could really alter the action. So
Yeah.
if that action is altered the way I'm thinking it could be, Nate Diaz should win. But hey, what do I know? Like Masvidal and Nate could just not care about any of this, which is a strong possibility too. And then the guy who's the better fighter on paper wins.
Mm.
In which case, probably will be Jorge. Um, but gun to my head, I'll say Nate Diaz. Although by the time the staff picks come out, perhaps I'll change my mind.